Hey marketers, do you think direct mail is dead? Well, think again. In today's CV Mike, Jeff Malloy from PreSmart Solutions reveals how ignoring your return to sender stack could be costing you six figures and why direct mail is making a data driven comeback. If you've only been thinking email, this conversation will change your funnel. Let's dive in. Hey there, I'm Joanna Bowser and I'm the Director of Marketing here at ClearVoice. Welcome to the ClearVoice Mic, Marketers in Conversation. Today I'm passing the mic to Jeff Malloy. He's the Director of Enterprise Sales at PreSmart Solutions. Let's jump in and see where the conversation takes us. Hey Jeff, welcome today. I'm so excited to be chatting with you.
Hey, Joanna. I'm excited too. Thanks for having me.
So as we dive in, I just want to ask you a quick question because I was reading your background and I just want you to share with anybody that's watching this who you are, what your background is, and what you do in your current role at PreSmart Solutions.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate that. So my name is Jeff Malloy. I am with PreSmart Solutions. I'm the Director of Enterprise Sales. So my task is kind of just driving sales. So I do all things sales related, kind of research, prospecting, do a lot of, demos and kind of continuing the conversations with our current customers and, looking to find new avenues and new, verticals, new paths where we can kind of generate more sales. So,
Sure. And I know that you have a background as a marketer, right?
yeah.
So, and then you made the jump over into sales, or there was kind of a transition. So, I'm curious as a salesperson, right? Because of there's many different ways. Sometimes marketing and sales are at odds. Sometimes they're like one motion. So, I'm curious as an enterprise sales director, how you sort of look at marketing and how you work with marketing in your role, and sort of how you've evolved that over the years as well.
Yeah. I've always had, marketing has always been my first passion. That's my degree from Temple is in marketing, and I really fell in love with it there. I had a great marketing professor, Dr. Conran, when I was at Temple, and she kind of just really introduced me to it as more of a concept. To be honest, when I originally chose my major at Temple, I was a little younger, but I thought I was going to go into advertising. When I went to Temple, it was just general studies, and I was going to declare later because I always just kind of had a creative mind. I like creating things. I like kind of even like little cartoons or things like that. I thought I could really be successful in that, and so I got to Temple, and my first semester was general studies, and I had to declare. And I was at the business school thinking I'm going to go in advertising and told them, and they were like, well, that's actually the art school. So you'd have to change schools. It was a whole thing. So I was like, I guess I'll go into marketing. It's kind of similar, right? I didn't really understand it. And so it was kind of funny how I fell into it. But then, I had that first marketing class with I think it was Professor Conrad, Dr. Conrad, I forget, but she really just kind of her passion for it and the way I always thought of marketing as like a little kind of smaller niche. It's like how which color is it, and which, kind of that. But just the thought process for everything that's involved in it, it kind of is really cool, and the ability to, I guess, all the statistics you can kind of use in marketing. That was one of the other things. Is I had a class. It was neurological marketing, which is
Sure.
just kind of crazy to the way different colors influence people's thought behaviors and where things are positioned in a grocery store, and it just kind of all those little nuances, kind of how they can make, they can impact sales, they can impact the whole company. It really made me fall in love with it. So yeah,
Yeah.
that was my first introduction to marketing. I had a small little marketing side business, when I was about 10 years ago, and just kind of did a little one-off, little, websites and kind of articles, and mostly with some of my local friends here, landscaping businesses and things that
Sure.
they were trying to
Yeah.
do. And just kind of, I started that whole process. And I grew, I got into sales. I worked for a company called Quadient
Mhm.
before, and we sold postal solutions and mailing related things, postage meters, folding, inserting equipment, a lot of different things. And so I had a lot of success there. It was a very big company. So I was
Right.
kind of, that just a, one salesperson out of 300, just kind of, the wheel in the cog kind of kept turning.
Yeah.
It was great. It was a great company. I really enjoyed my time there, but it was, it was all sales. It was kind of calling, just maintaining a CRM and all that kind of stuff. I missed that marketing aspect of it. So when this opportunity came along here at PreSmart, it was a more, PreSmart had launched in 2023,
Mhm.
and I had joined in 2024 earlier on, and so it was still relatively new. So it was really cool. I had the opportunity to really have a lot of input, not only in just sales. I know my title is Director of Enterprise Sales, but here, it's nice. Everybody is so welcoming, and our marketing team is awesome, and they really value the input that I can have here. So I saw the opportunity here, and I figured I'd spread my wings a little bit more and
Sure.
see what I can contribute. So.
Sure. I'm curious because it's interesting. So we have like we have a revenue motion instead of a marketing motion and a sales motion. And
Yep.
part of that is to create these great feedback loops, right, with our sales team because they're talking to potential buyers and we can
Hmm.
learn so much. And I'm curious when you think about, as a like in the sales role, how do you like what's your preferred way of like that conversation happening between marketing and sales just from a washing one hand washing the other if you will to make sure that we're like both working as effectively and as efficiently as possible.
Yeah, yeah. I think, the more communication you can have between a marketing and a sales team, the better. That's kind of in previous organizations I had worked with, it was marketing came down, told us what the play was, what the kind of the campaign would be, and we just kind of had to react to it. So we had to answer the phone calls. Here at PreSmart, it's really awesome. Our marketing team meets with the sales team once a week. We all have valuable input. If they have any campaigns that they're trying to launch, if we're attending any new shows and different verticals, it's kind of all hands on deck. Hey, give me the feedback. You guys are on the front lines, so the salespeople are always on the front lines, kind of hearing everything. So it's nice that here that at PreSmart everybody is kind of works together. So we
Sure.
have once a week meetings. Everybody kind of has ideas. There's different projects. I'm up pretty late sometimes, just kind of creating different flow charts and kind of things that I think would benefit the sales team. So and they provide great feedback as well. That's the one thing I can do is think of things. It's kind of I'm an ideas person, but it's putting it into action where the marketing team really takes the next step where it's like, oh, I have an idea, and then mine's little stick figures drawn out, and like it's just not very well put together, but the thought is there, and then the marketing team can kind of really amp it up and make it very professional and impactful.
Yeah, sure. I'm curious, how does the like when you think about your buyer journey, right? So they,
Hmm.
and they come in many different doors. I'm sure they have marketing brings them in through paid campaigns, through like conferences is probably your biggest, just knowing the
Yes.
business.
Hmm.
But how do you work with your marketing folks to really help elevate the buyer journey in the sales process? Like, what does that look like? Because I think there's a lot of marketers that might be listening that would be very interested in a salesperson's perspective on that
Hmm.
because we have a lot of opinions about that, but it's just different
Yeah.
when you're like the one talking to the customer, right?
Yeah, well, I think, definitely making sure everybody's on the same page. So in sales, we tend to overpromise, what marketing can deliver, or what, the IT team can deliver, or our operations team. But, just making sure that we're setting expectations early. It's not the pie in the sky. This is going to do everything you need it to do and more.
Right.
Our solution, we have a great solution here. It's a very simple, kind of easy to understand. Hey, clean your addresses, make sure these pieces of mail are going to get delivered. And if they're not, pull them out, save the money, save the time. You don't have to
Sure.
send that. So it's our solution is simple, it's very impactful. So working with marketing to kind of explain that impact in various brochures and various workflows. One of the things we've worked really hard with marketing on with marketing and sales is what we tend to discover is that we are identifying a huge problem within certain companies, especially
Sure.
larger companies. We go in, we can evaluate that, hey, you've been sending out 10 million pieces of mail a year. About 5% of that, based on our calculations, is probably getting returned, so as
Mhm.
undeliverable.
It's a lot of money.
So
Yeah.
identifying that and presenting it to a company, sometimes it can be overwhelming for them. That's we've seen, hey, we're identifying we can save you $800,000 a year in operations costs just by doing this one simple
Right.
thing. And
Right.
then that's not to add, the increased revenue you see from now you're connecting with those customers that you might have missed. You're reaching, especially like in education, so donor campaigns. So you're reaching alumni that may have moved 5 years ago that you never updated their address information. So kind of identifying that if you can reach 5% more, or sometimes in education, it's upwards of 20% more of the campaign that you're sending
Sure.
out, what's that return on investment? And
Right.
so we identify that, but then now the people that we're talking to have to go and present that to their bosses, and their bosses are going to say, well, what have you been doing the last 5 years? Why are we wasting $800,000 a year on this? These
Sure.
things all come back to us on a pallet and we just don't do anything with them. So
Right.
it's
Yeah.
really a process interruption, a gap analysis, we call it, as identifying where there might be an issue. So marketing does a great job with the sales team. And, when we discover that, presenting that in a way that is palatable, for
Sure.
people. They don't want to see, hey, you've been wasting
Yeah.
$800,000 a year for the last
Yeah.
5 years, and
Like,
it
you're
was this
fired
person's job.
also.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, no. So it's kind of making it easier because I'm very blunt, as we mentioned in the beginning. I'm, Northeast Philadelphia kid. I can kind of, it's just, I tend to say things without thinking a lot of times, but being able to kind of put that into a more palatable kind of document, a proposal, you will,
Yeah.
it helps us a lot. So marketing does a great job kind of connecting with us there.
Sure. So I'm gonna get very nerdy for a second. Like, this is
Yeah.
like marketing, revenue, sales nerdy. So there's two things I'm hearing that are really interesting to me in this conversation. The first is sort of addressing the buyer committee and partnering with marketing so that anybody on the buy side and their buyer committee, whether it's the actual person you're talking to, the champion, or their boss, that they're sort of we're building bespoke materials that sort of address the different folks on those committees, right? And
Yeah.
I'm curious, is that like part of the process, and what does that look like? And then I have another question as well, but I want to kind of
Yeah.
do that first.
Absolutely, because especially within our solution, so we primarily, the first stop will be the mailroom. So people handling the postage, people handling the mail, but realistically, we can't do anything until we've addressed, the bad addresses within each list. So now we have to go into each department. So whether that be, alumni relations, whether that be within healthcare, the operations department, within financial, the marketing department is a huge one.
Sure.
So kind of getting all hands on deck and kind of making sure that IT and marketing and the CFOs and operations executives and project managers are all kind of involved in a way that everybody's communicating. It's not pinpointing one specific problem, one specific area. It's really giving everybody the resources they need to be the most efficient at their job. Our marketing team does a good job having backgrounds on each different levels and kind of different
Sure.
conversation topics and different approaches we can take with each one. So now that we're talking about it, I'm thinking about all the knowledge that they have to have, and it's kind of
Yeah.
crazy that the work that goes into that. So
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's cool. I mean, what you're really highlighting though is more, there's the marketing apparatus, right? You thought it was a little thing in college, and then you sort of
yeah,
uncovered across your career, but even in starting in school, you uncovered, man, it's more than just the colors, right? Or more than just the brand.
yeah,
There's like enablement, there's market research, there's, all of these different layers to, and the content, is a whole big machine that's probably really developed probably since you and I left school in a
yeah,
whole other way, right? And so what's really cool, and I really appreciate as an enterprise salesperson, talking about the marketing team at your organization is sort of what it can look like ideally, and like appreciating like, hey, like they really give us a lot of ammunition to go in, or they help us build what we need to build in a really cool way. So I just like,
yeah.
as a marketer, expressing my appreciation about
Well, and I
that.
think it helps that that's where my background is from. And there's
Absolutely.
another aspect to it is our company culture is just very very, hey, everybody get involved. Nobody keeps an opinion to themselves. Nobody puts down anybody else's opinions. Everybody. There's plenty of times where I give an opinion or I give a suggestion, and I'm like, I probably should have just kept my mouth shut. That was silly, but nobody's ever kind of said, "Nah, we're not going to use that." It's so everybody tries. Some other places where it's just not as involved, I'd say
Right.
it's not
Yeah.
as you don't feel as familial. And here it's, I know I could call Mary any time of the day and she's going to answer, and I'll be like, hey, I have this idea, and if she's not busy, she'll make the time for me to kind of have that, and kind of we can bounce off each other. So working together, I think, really helps.
That's very cool. I'm curious. I know we met at a conference, right? So we met at the
Yeah.
Financial Brand Forum, and but I'm curious for you, like from a sales and marketing perspective, what are the types of campaigns in the past year that you've seen to be the most effective at bringing in new business? Because new business is a struggle pretty much no matter what industry you're in right now. So I'm
Yeah.
curious what you're seeing working, especially from the sales side, right? Because that's a more down funnel metric, if you will.
Yeah, so speaking sales side, the conferences have been great. The days of cold calling and emailing and, knocking on doors, that's kind of dwindled a lot, and it still works, you just got to put in the effort, so being able to attend these conferences, and these are people that, we've identified, and that's what it goes back to marketing, that they've identified these conferences are going to be a good resource for us, and they cost a ton of money. And so our, president is happy to send us if there's going to be a return there. And there
Sure.
always is. The marketing team does a great job in identifying which conferences to go to. We met at Financial Brand, but we were just at National Postal Forum, and we'll be attending NACMS, which is National Association of College and University Mailing Services. I mailed
Okay.
that. I didn't
Wow,
even have to look at my
that's
notes
a
there.
niche,
Yeah.
very niche
Yeah.
conference. That's
But
amazing.
having to find, we found that, and it's just like we didn't even know it existed last year. And now it's like, okay, our marketing team has identified that. And then just the effort they put into the resources we take to the conferences. So we
Yeah.
have a great, we always get complimented on our booth setup. Our president, he brought a nice little thing. It turns into a stand. It keeps everything, compact. But
Sure.
the displays, our marketing team does a good job. And it was a learning process for sure. At the first show we attended, our display, it was all words, so it would be like a bullet point list on, you can, this is what will be impactful if you identify undeliverable addresses before you
Right.
send it out. Save money, increase ROI, prevent fraud. It was big in the industry, it's preventing fraud. You want to make sure that you're sending those credit cards out to the correct people.
Right.
But so that was our first show. But then the second show, we're like, all right, we need visuals. So putting those the yellow sticker mail pieces. So that's when mail comes back as undeliverable, they have a yellow sticker on there. It's called a Nixie code. If you're familiar with undeliverable mail, you're probably familiar with those Nixie codes,
Sure.
and that will be an instant trigger. So we had,
Right.
10 times the traffic at the next show because they saw our booth and they saw that big picture of the yellow sticker mail. And I can't tell you how many people came up to us and were like, I need help with that. Can you help
Yeah,
me with
whatever
that?
that is, what do you guys do to
hmm
fix that?
And
Yeah.
it was worth a million words on whatever poster that
Sure.
nobody's going to read, but the
Yeah.
marketing team's ability to kind of maneuver and kind of understand that, hey, maybe we need visuals, and that would be more impactful. And it was 100% more impactful. It was really, really
Very
cool.
cool. Yeah, no, that's
Yeah.
cool, and that's I mean, we all know a picture is worth 1,000 words, right? Or that statement.
Yeah.
But what a great illustration of it, and not really one that's kind of on the nose, if you will. Like it's very sort of like it speaks specifically to that, like in a way to that
It's
buyer that was like a pain point. We're like, oh, I don't want to even see that yellow thing in
yes.
my office,
hmm
right?
Nobody wants to think about it.
It
Yeah.
presses the button pretty hard. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, and people don't. It's something. Yeah, again, they don't want to think about it. It's something that has been ignored forever. It's just kind of. It's always been a cost of doing business. Is we just don't have it. Even if you run NCOA, there's platforms out there that can do NCOA and all that kind of things. You're not gonna identify every one, and so
Sure.
it's just a constant source of wasted cost, of wasted time. Within the government, we've done some work with governments, and it's just like, I cannot. You're sending out this mail; it doesn't even have an address on it. Like,
Right. It's just
it's
like
just hundreds of pieces of non-address that you're just putting
right.
into the post office, and it just comes right back to you. So
Yeah.
they don't want to think about it, but then they see that yellow, and they're like, I need a solution for that. Like,
Yeah. That's
okay, the yellow stickers really are impactful, and that's the first thing you see when you visit our website is
sure.
that it just cuts right to the heart, of people who have the problem. But
I
that's
love
that's
it.
the beauty in marketing is,
Yeah,
it makes our
absolutely.
job a lot easier when people are coming over and saying, hey, can you help me with that? I'm like,
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly. Not you are
actually,
just
that's
like,
why
you
we're
can
here.
just hop in. Yeah. And that's
Absolutely.
I
Yeah.
think that's the real again, you're kind of talking about how marketing can really set the sales team up in that way. And what a great illustration of it. And I'm curious, so ClearVoice, we do content marketing.
hmm
We help brands with content marketing, and I'm just interested in, from a salesperson's perspective, how content marketing things, whether it's a blog or, I mean, obviously we get sales collateral, that's the easy one, but just
Yeah.
anything else up funnel, how you guys use those types of tools, if you will. Again, it could be a blog, could be a webinar, to support your sales process. Because I think it'd be helpful for marketers to really understand the implementation of those as they like pitch these ideas to their bosses and things like that,
Oh,
or
absolutely.
try to build budget for those.
Yeah, I think it goes back to, market research, making sure that, hey, if you're going to invest the time, if you're going to invest money in producing a blog or publishing a blog or an article, make sure that it's the right target audience. So that's one of the things. And we have a couple of articles out there and blogs, and we have a guy on staff, Frank Lynn, who's just a wealth of knowledge. He's forgotten more about the postal regulations than anybody in the world can ever
Sure.
a, attest to understand. It's just the guy knows more about the postal industry than anybody I've ever met. And I've been in this industry for 11 years now. I've met some really great people, but Frank, he's on our staff. He's our postologist. So if
Sure.
you sign up with PreSmart, you get the solution and everything, but then you also get Frank as a consultant. So
Okay.
Frank is
Yeah.
able to he has, again, so I can't speak highly enough of Frank, but what marketing has identified is the right target audiences for us. So mailing industries, college, universities, financial, healthcare, utilities is a big one for us. People sending out a lot of mail,
Sure.
monthly statements. That mail is impactful. People kind of downplay mail as mail's dead. It's old stuff, but it really is. The cost of generating one invoice is upwards of $25 for a business. So when you factor in the production of that invoice, printing, posting, envelope cost, but then also the software that's used to create that invoice, they have to
Yeah.
configure it differently. It's exponential to send that out to somebody without a address on there, or if it's
Right.
a bad address, you're wasting that money.
Right.
I get a little off track here, but sorry.
Yeah.
So
It's
anyway, you
okay.
asked me about how we target it, but Frank is a wealth of knowledge. Frank, he understands the industry. He has so much knowledge to share. He's great, and it's part of our initiatives now. But Frank has already published a couple of blogs. We have them in a couple different publications. But then we're also starting the speaker circuit. So I mentioned we're going to the NACM's conference next
Yeah.
week, and Frank will actually be doing a presentation there on undeliverable mail. And he can't relate it back to PreSmart. It's not like a selling presentation, but just giving
Sure.
that education is
Yeah.
so valuable to our customers because, again, I harp on these companies. They just kind of take it as it's the cost of doing business.
Right.
It's but understanding that there is a way you can address the solution or the
Sure.
problem, no pun intended, address the bad addresses, you can, it can be really impactful. So having, articles like that, having blog posts, Frank does a great job. He even, even sharing articles. So our team, our sales team on LinkedIn is incentive, is, I wouldn't say incentivized, but,
It's
what's the word
part of the
it's
motion.
yeah,
Yeah.
we like sharing articles, so we'll
Yeah.
find relevant articles, especially there's a postal increase coming up next week where I think it's about 8% increase in postage, so
Sure.
it's relevant for people who are into that industry.
Right. That's so interesting. Yeah, and that's something. I mean, again, we know events are really working well, especially like where you can do a presentation and things like that, or host a
Yeah.
roundtable. But the education I think is interesting, in the space, as you say, like people just think it's the cost of doing business. But if we can educate them that there's actually like we can save you 15-20%,
Hmm.
like let's go.
Yeah,
So
that's the minimal savings.
yeah,
If you're sending that out, what you're sending out is valuable. So you've already, especially in marketing, the ROI of like a college. It's if you reach one more potential student,
yeah,
it costs $80,000 a year to go to Temple, I
right,
think now. So that's 4 years of $80,000 tuition plus
right,
everything else it is. So that's one extra person. It's
right,
impactful. So those
yeah,
marketing pieces are impactful. It's very big in like car dealerships. So the value of one extra car sale is a new truck these days is $100,000. So getting the right person at the right time. That's really
right,
all. That's what it is. Hey, is this person in the market for a car? You don't know that. You might know that based on the websites and everything, but you wouldn't know that while you're sending everything out. But if you can hit that one person at that right time, they see your
right,
beautifully designed marketing piece.
right.
Now you're getting them into the store. It really is impactful. So kind of
Sure.
hitting
Yeah.
that, making sure you're connecting to everybody that you're intending to connect with is a huge benefit from our perspective.
Absolutely. I think from anybody that uses mailing in their marketing
Yeah.
imagery there as
Yeah.
well.
So,
Well, I want to change the topic for just a second and just sort of get to know you a little bit more personally. We've talked a lot about work and marketing
mhm.
and all of that, but what do you do outside of work?
I have two young girls. So I have two daughters. They're 3 and 5.
Oh, wow.
They keep me very busy. Yeah, that just they're wonderful. It's
Yeah,
my life is infinitely better. The last 5 years just with them in it. But yeah, no, my wife is she stays at home with them, takes care of
sure.
them. We live here in central Pennsylvania, right next to Hershey Park. So we got the season tickets to Hershey Park.
Cool.
We like to, especially during the summer. This is my daughter's first or last year before kindergarten start, so where we have to really be in school all the time. So we've been, taking a lot of vacations. We've been traveling, the shore or the Jersey Shore, and then we were just
Sure.
down in Virginia. So no, I just love to spend time with my family. Really, I used to love fishing and golf and playing poker and all those things. But really, any free time I have, it really is just I get so much enjoyment being with my kids and
And there's
you
more
know
there'll be time for golf in the future,
that's
right?
yeah, that's
You
what
can do it,
I
especially when
keep
they're
telling
little,
myself.
hang out with the
I
kids for sure.
That's what it's such a little amount of time, and everybody
Yeah,
always says, enjoy it while it lasts. And I just really I want to make sure I'm doing the most to do that. So,
sure.
we go hiking, we have bike rides, and we have two border collie mixed
Oh,
dogs, so we
fun.
gotta
You gotta
tire
take them
them
out
out
a
as
lot,
well.
yeah.
Yeah, I might look a little tired. It's because I am, but it's
Yeah. You got
it's
dogs,
fun.
kids,
Dogs,
toddlers.
yeah, it's a lot of fun. We're always moving too. Our neighbors are always laughing at us, like, "Oh, where are you going today?" And it's just
Yeah,
always somewhere else. And
sure.
my wife is, we make a great team because neither of us can sit still. So it's always like, "All right,
Oh,
what
it
are we
feels
doing
like that.
today?"
It'd be
Like,
a bummer if
yeah, like we drove back from Virginia Beach. I think it was Saturday, and it was like a 7 hour drive, with kids, and it was a long day, and we just spent 4 or 5 days there, and we got back Saturday and Sunday. We both wake up and we're like, we're going to Hershey Park today, right? Like, it's a nice day for Hershey Park, and these kids are gonna like run away by the time they get to kindergarten, just because we're
they're
so
just gonna
busy
be
all the
like
time.
they're
But
gonna welcome school so they can just like be
they're gonna be
no.
like,
I
this is
think
so relaxing.
yeah. What is this? No, it's really great to hear. I mean, it sounds like you guys have a lot of fun, and I think that's like the most important thing when your kids are
Well,
young. So,
yeah, we
yeah.
do, and they're just getting old enough now. I'll start taking them to some Phillies and Eagles games. I love the Philadelphia sports, so go Birds. But
Yeah,
yeah,
totally get it.
it's getting really, it's starting to. I always think, ah, man, I just wish you would stay this young forever. And like
Yeah.
looking back at old pictures, it's always so heartbreaking when
Yeah.
there's so little, and now you're looking at them like you're up to my belly button now. Like, how'd you get so big? But it is just like with each step comes something new that they can do. So like my
Yeah.
daughter and I are riding roller coasters now at Hershey Park, and
Right.
it's so fun. And like just watching my younger daughter watch us, and now she's going to be able to experience that in a couple of months when she hits that Hershey's chocolate bar, I think is the
Yeah.
way that they measure it. Yeah. But just the different levels, and I coached my daughter in t-ball this year for the
Oh,
first
fun.
time, and
Yeah.
that was just so cool. My dad was always my baseball coach growing up, and my dad passed away 3 years ago, but he just kind of embodied that. He was such a great dad. He was always our coach. He just instilled great values in me and always had time for us. And so just kind of replicating that with my daughters has always been just my goal. It was kind of I loved coaching her in baseball. I really didn't think she was gonna like it. She's more of a I always said, she's probably gonna be on the stage, she's more of a theater kid and
Yeah.
likes acting and singing, but she really loved baseball, and it was really fun to kind of her eyes, see it through her eyes, and then kind
Sure.
of imagining myself when I was younger and how big my dad was at that time. And now I'm sitting here and I'm supposed to be the adult. And it's always kind of like, oh, I still feel like I'm that little kid now. Now I
Sure.
have this little one to take care of. So it's kind
Absolutely.
of cool. Yeah. No,
Yeah.
but yeah, outside of that, I like to fish. I like to golf. My friends and I, we go fishing in the Chesapeake Bay once a year. It's always a good trip for myself,
Yeah.
get down there and catch stripers, but I don't have too much time for kind of that stuff
No, you got kid
anymore.
yeah. You gotta go
Yeah,
ride roller coasters while you can.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but I love that you brought up, being a dad and just sort of talking about your father. I'm curious, just kind of like putting on your wise dad hat, if there's any advice you would give to a young marketer or a young sort of like even salesperson coming up, and just anything that you would want them, or even your younger self, what you'd want yourself to know?
Yeah, stay confident for sure. It was one thing my wife always laughs at me because she says I'm the most confident person, even when I know I'm wrong. But just confidence is
That's
always
definitely a spouse feedback.
yes, yeah, yeah. No, she tries to cut it down when she can, but no, just remain confident. If you've done the background work, if you've done the research, that's kind of what builds confidence is being prepared. I always said that, kind of preparedness creates confidence because if you're not prepared, you're not going to go in there and be confident. If you're not prepared, you're not going to be launching a campaign that you think will be successful. It's kind of going to be a, well, we'll see. So it was one of the things my dad always instilled in me. He was a police officer, so he was always prepared and taking notes, and
Sure. Yeah.
did a lot of note taking, and kind of that's one of the things I think has led to my success in sales is I see a lot of things. So being remote, it's a little harder, but in person you can see kind of different the way people react and their movements, and even things like I would look on your desk and see, oh, you like Yoda, so
Yeah.
maybe I could start talking about Star Wars for a second.
Nice. That's
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. The dinosaurs. Yeah. Or, I think that's Tom Clancy up there in
Yeah,
the book.
exactly.
So,
I try to
yeah.
have a
Yeah.
bunch of like little Easter eggs. So if someone
Yeah. So,
keeps talking about
you kind of, again, preparedness leads to confidence, but then have the ability to change as well.
it. Sure. Awesome. Yeah, totally get that. Well, thank you so much for joining
Yeah.
me today. I really appreciated the conversation. It was really great to get to know you, and kind of learn more about you even through this conversation, even though we talked before and all of that. So
Yeah.
really appreciate you. If there's any, like, I guess I'll pass the mic to you one more time for like one final thought
Yeah.
before we wrap it up.
No, I would say, as a selfless pitch about for my product, direct mail is, it's been increasing. People prefer that. There's all types of statistics. Direct mail has a 9% open rate versus a less than 1% for emails. So making sure that if you're utilizing direct mail, if you're utilizing the right campaigns, you want to make sure that those communications are getting to the right places. And,
Sure.
that's where we can help out here at
Yeah.
PreSmart. It's kind of has been very, very successful. It's great because our product is good, our people are good. It kind of makes my life a lot easier. I don't have to worry about any headaches. It's kind of, hey, most people that we show this to agree it would work for them. So,
Oh, cool.
I don't know if that's what you were
I've
looking for.
actually no. I
Sorry.
mean, I don't know what I was. I mean, I was like curious what people said. I've been through this conversation, reminded how right now personalization is one of the all the rages, and the human connection is all the rage in content marketing. And when you look at the stats for email versus, it just hasn't occurred to me that much about direct mail. So it's
Yeah.
cool here, even as a marketer sitting here with you in this conversation, of thinking through, not that we need your solution yet because we don't have a list, but like it's more
Yeah.
of just like, hey, like where can we mature what we're doing in a way to reach customers in a different way. um,
Well,
so I mean, even that
abs-
just tactic is something that I think has gone out the window, and I think is really powerful to like consider in today's age where it's all digital all the time.
and having a multi-faceted strategy is very impactful as well. So sending the emails, it's that's always going to be the cheapest option. It
Right.
doesn't cost a lot to send a million emails, but the return on that is not as much. But if
Right.
you partner that with a direct mail campaign
Sure.
saying, hey, look in your mailbox, there's going to be a piece for you. You can personalize those pieces, individual barcodes and everything. It gets a little nerdy, and I love to talk
Yeah.
nerdy
That'll be the
mailing
next
solutions.
episode.
Yeah, I don't think that's for this podcast, but just so many different intricacies. But yeah, like a marketing piece and direct mail campaign typically lasts for 17 days in a prospect's household. It's not most of the time it is immediately thrown away, but when they don't throw it away, it'll sit there for 17 days. So there's longevity to it. So an
Right.
email, if you even open the email, you're clicking out of it within 5 seconds and it's gone. You're not going to think about it again. Whereas that piece that might be sitting on somebody's counter, or hey, if there's a coupon, maybe I'll use that, or oh,
Right.
maybe I'll visit that in a second.
Yeah.
They might not throw it away immediately, and then as they're walking through, oh, here it is again, and so they see it a couple more times. So direct mail, it's as impactful as ever. People are preferring it now just because of the influx of technology, I guess. The
Yeah.
notifications on
Absolutely.
your phone, it drives me nuts. I have to turn them off a lot of the times, but Yeah, I think it is very impactful. It's still kind of you can see all the statistics for it too. And I might be a little biased. I'm in the industry, but the statistics are out there. They're completely unbiased,
Sure.
and you can see how it's growing and impactful. So
Awesome. Cool.
yeah,
Well, that's a great way to end it.
yeah,
A new way of thinking for
hmm
anybody tuning in. So again, thanks so much for your time. It was a pleasure chatting with you. And
yeah. You too.
yeah, we'll see you maybe again soon to talk.
Yeah, thanks, Joanna. I appreciate it. Take
Awesome.
care.
Thank you.
Bye.
In today's world, digital is noisy, but mail gets opened. Thanks, Jeff, for showing us why marketers should stop sleeping on direct mail and start using it smarter. If you want higher ROI and better CX, it's time to think about the mailbox. Drop a like or share with a fellow marketer and subscribe for more unskippable insights on CV Mike.